Wuchang Fallen Feathers released for PC and console in July of 2025, with a day one Game Pass release on Xbox console, which is where I played it. If you don't have Game Pass, you can pick up Wuchang for $50 on the online console stores or PC through Steam. As a Souls-like, Wuchang looks and runs well on console, but there has been some recent controversy regarding patches changing some of the main story elements, fundamentally altering some of the narrative themes. So is Wuchang Fallen Feathers worth playing on console? This review is going to answer that question. But first, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's begin the review, as we always do, with the graphics and technicals. Wuchang Fallen Feathers runs reasonably well on console, especially for an Unreal Engine 5 game. If you have been following my channel for a while, you'll know that Unreal Engine 5 has some problems with stuttering and frame rate drops. It's a graphical powerhouse that even the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 can barely handle. This does result in some technical issues in Wuchang that don't ruin the experience overall, but are noticeable. For example, the game stutters if you're transitioning between areas, which happens a lot if you die and have to run back from the shrine you respawned in. But thankfully, it didn't happen during any of the boss fights since they were always in small, self-contained areas. To maintain the frame rate, I strongly suggest playing in performance mode. As a Souls-like, you need to respond quickly to things, and a stuttering camera that's lagging in quality mode is a hindrance that you just don't need. However, the downside of performance mode is a blurring effect, especially when you're running or there's a lot happening on screen. But overall, performance on console is good and I had no complaints about it. Obviously, it will look significantly better on a high-end PC, but the benefit of having it on console is having the developers push out patches to tune it to console the best they can, ensuring that you're having a good experience. One last thing to mention, Wuchang has a lot of fan service in it. It's not overly distracting, but the outfits and design of the main character means there's a lot of focus on certain parts of that character. Armor does leave large portions uncovered so that you can see certain parts of her, and it's clear why the developers chose to do that. It's just a small part of the game, but it's significant enough that I do want to highlight it in my review. The story of Wuchang Fallen Feathers is the typical obtuse narrative of a Souls-like where you need to piece together from bits and pieces of lore and item descriptions, NPCs, and potentially missable story beats. If you, like me, went into Wuchang blind, there is a strong chance that you're going to get one of the game's bad endings, which is what I did. There are multiple endings, and the best ending requires you to understand the proper choices and the NPC progression to unlock it. But that isn't necessarily a bad thing since it does encourage you to replay the game in New Game Plus. Before we get to all that though, let's cover the basics about what Wuchang is about without spoiling it for those who want to go into it blind. You begin the game as a young woman who wakes up in a cave with no memory of who you are or where you are and what you're doing there. Your arm is covered in these strange feathers and everyone around you is sick. The very land itself is mutating with people turning into monsters. The few humans that are left are killing everyone that shows a hint of this new illness, and you have no idea what you're supposed to be doing. The game is set in China during the 1600s in an alternate timeline. The illness is called the feathering, which causes people to lose their memories and transform into monsters. That right there is the basic gist of the story. You're essentially trying to figure out who you are and what's happening here. Without spoiling anything specific, the game is largely about dealing with the loss of loved ones. A lot of the troubles in this land comes from people trying to resurrect the dead or obtain immortality, and that's causing havoc. Overall, the story is good, but again, there's a lot here that can be missed, which is typical for a Souls-like. You can get as much or as little out of the story as you want, provided you dive into the item descriptions and explore the map as much as possible. There's a ton of story and lore here, but it's up to the players to find a lot of it. The storyline reminded me a lot of Bloodborne. taking some of its ideas of people turning into monsters due to an illness, the role of the deities and the heavens in that transformation, and an ancient civilization of monstrous beings. If you love the setting and body horror of Bloodborne, you're going to love Wuchang as well. Now, there's a bit of controversy regarding the story and some changes due to some recent patches. The developers have changed some of the NPCs, allowing them to survive the storyline where they had died before the change. This caused some of the themes in the story to kind of break, as the major idea that, resurrecting someone is bad, but having these characters survive due to the patch changes that storyline. Overall, it's not game-breaking, and it shouldn't prevent anyone from playing Wuchang, but it does speak to the fact that the developers allowed outrage and controversy to force them to change their storyline. If you're looking for specifics on the changes the patch brought, and don't mind spoilers to the story, a quick search on YouTube will bring up the videos discussing it in detail.
Why am I here?
I came upon you in a brooklet some days past. You lay passed out due to the feathering. I moved you to the cave to recuperate.
The feathering?
I see. No, you not.
Alright, Wuchang Fallen Feathers is a Souls-like. That means it plays very similar to games like Bloodborne and Elden Ring. The combat's fairly tight and responsive, although it can be stiff and strange at the start until you get used to it and unlock some upgrades to your character. It's not as slow as the original Dark Souls, but it's also not as fast and fluid as Elden Ring, putting it somewhere in the middle of the two. Wuchang has a number of weapons to choose from, but they all fall in the same few styles like axes, one-handed swords, spears, longswords. Unlike Dark Souls, where you upgrade your character's stats, Wuchang uses a skill tree system, with all your upgrades being in that tree. You don't level up traditionally, putting points in, say, vitality or strength. Instead, you unlock a portion of the tree that does the same thing. This means that your character's stats are usually aligned with the weapon style you use, rather than your own choice. For example, if you use an axe, you follow the axe skill tree. Axes use strength, and most of the nodes in that tree will unlock strength and things related to it. Weapon upgrades work the same. You don't go to a blacksmith to upgrade a weapon. Instead, you put points and resources into the skill tree, gaining mastery of a weapon style, which upgrades the weapon as you use it. The best part of the skill tree system is the fact that you can just refund all your points for free anytime you want. That includes your weapon upgrades. This lets you mix and match your points, try different styles and magic without any consequence. The downside of this free refund system, however, is that the game's bosses are sort of designed around it. There's often a specific way of approaching a boss with a recommended weapon and style, and the game does want you to refund your points and use their recommended weapon. You can get by sticking with one playstyle if you want, and if you have the talent to back that up, but some bosses are just easier or geared towards, say, long swords that counter them, or one-handed swords that let you use magic better, that sort of thing. The game wants you to refund your skill points frequently, switching out and changing your character as you need. Upgrades to your health flask and the amount of it heals are the same. It's tied to the skill tree rather than specific upgrades. You pick up items in the world to upgrade it further, but still need to put points into the tree using the resources to upgrade it. This means that the weapons in Wuchang don't really matter as much when compared to the type of weapon it is instead. There are differences between, say, longswords, for example, with each having specific different abilities and damage combinations, but generally one longsword is functionally the same as another. Magic in Wuchang exists, with some spells being purchased or found in the world, but mana is gained differently. Instead of having magic points, you fill up a bar on the bottom left of the screen by dodging enemies or hitting them. You fill the bar, you can use the spell. Stronger spells require more bars to use, and you can get more bars through, again, the skill tree. Wuchang's levels are all interconnected, with unlockable gates and passageways becoming like a spiderweb, allowing one shrine to connect to many different areas, very similar to Dark Souls 1. This system is fine, but it does mean that there's often not a lot of shrines, leaving long walks back to areas if you die and you haven't unlocked the shortcut yet. I find the levels themselves can actually be confusing as well, lacking enough differences in the areas to guide where you're supposed to go or where you've already been. Generally in Wuchang, if you pick a direction, you're usually going to end up where you need to go eventually, but it also means that you might miss out on a lot of the side content. But getting lost is a real concern, especially in the later sections of the game, where there is a lot of similar looking areas, and you'll find yourself wandering around looking for where you're supposed to go. Sometimes there's lanterns or other items to guide you, but the interconnectivity of the maps can make things very complicated. I found myself missing the simple, straightforward pathways of a more linear Souls-like, rather than the labyrinths of Wuchang. Finally, let's talk about the difficulty. Wuchang is very hard. It's a Souls-like, so expect to die a lot. But the difficulty in Wuchang comes from falling off cliffs or narrow walkways, enemies jumping out of nowhere, status effects that drain your health very quickly, hordes of enemies that are hacking away at you, and bosses that are large and crushing or humanoid and fast. There are definite skill checks in Wuchang, while others are just item or level checks. Some bosses are designed to halt your progress unless you have locked enough of the skill tree or have the right equipment to take them down, but others require you to learn the game's mechanics. Without spoilers, at the end of Chapter 1, there is a boss that's a player skill check. The game tells you that you need to learn how to counter attacks using a longsword to beat them. This is one of the hardest bosses in the game, at least skill-wise, and I suspect a majority of people are going to hit this barrier and stop playing. Unlike Elden Ring, for example, where you can just leave and come back, upgrading your character and equipment to tackle that boss again later, Wuchang doesn't really let you do that. It's linear, so if you've already explored the map, you have everything the game's going to give you for items and equipment. You also don't earn a lot of XP for the skill tree by grinding, at least not in the early game, so you're forced to try and try again. If you don't like hard games, Wuchang is not going to be for you. Alright, let's go into the pros and cons of Wuchang Fallen Feathers. For the pros, the game looks really good, using the Unreal Engine 5 without suffering from too many graphical issues on console. Story is interesting with a lot of lore and secrets to find. The combat is fun, especially when it finally clicks and all the systems work together right. For the cons, the game is hard and it lacks any of the difficulty sliders to make it more accessible to the public. This might be a pro to more hardcore gamers who play a lot of Souls-likes, but it is a con for those looking to experience the story and may not have the skill level to do it. The levels can be confusing to navigate with similar areas, so you don't know where to go or if you've already been in an area. There is a compass, but a map would have been great. The developers recently released a patch that changed a large portion of the later narrative, disrupting some of its themes and the entire point of the story, to be honest. And that's it for another review. So, is Wuchang Fallen Feathers worth playing on console? Absolutely, if you like hard Souls-like games and don't mind that, the story changed post-release. And it's only $50 and it's on Game Pass day 1. It's an easy recommendation to check out. I'm the Casual Console Gamer, and I'll see you all in the next review.